Welcome to the Well-Built Business Podcast. I'm Chelsea Fournier, systems strategist and founder of the Well-Built Business Method. Now, I'll be honest, operations isn't the flashiest part of entrepreneurship. It's not the thing people usually want to focus on, but it is what will keep you in your zone of genius and away from burnout. If you are a service provider or expert-based business owner and you've hit a point where you realize structure, clarity, and clean systems are what actually unlock sustainable growth, you're in the right place. Each week, we talk about what it takes to build a business that supports your life, not one that constantly drains it. I'm really glad you're here, so let's dive in. So this is an episode I've been teasing over the course of the past few episodes. I am, in this year, 2026, treating my own business, the Well-Built Business, like my own operations client. And in these episodes that I will sprinkle in, I will be sharing full behind-the-scenes look at how I'm applying everything we've been talking about in the past few episodes to my own business. So in episode 3, we looked at the specific way that I audit the output and then build backwards. And we also looked at some core questions that I think are so important to think about before choosing tools or software or how you're going to approach a systems challenge. And so we are going to talk about them in relation to my business. I will be bearing it all, folks. I get a lot of questions about how I quote unquote do it all, because I run my business part-time in this current season. If you've been following me for a long time, you might have met me in a season where I was working more full-time or running masterminds or running a marketing agency. I've done a lot of things since I left the practice of law in 2015. But currently, I run my consulting and strategy business part-time, and I actually homeschool my son 2 days a week, and I actually really love it. I love that role and our relationship and being a part of his education. And so there's a lot of curiosity around how I manage marketing my business, running my business, and showing up for clients in my business on such limited hours. I really try to work exclusively when he is at his outdoor school 3 days a week. My mom hangs out with him currently. I hope that lasts for a long time. Currently, she hangs out with him one day while I run calls, and then every once in a while on a weekend, I need to batch some content. We're going to talk specifically about that, and it's actually what I'm doing right this very second. So the answer is I actually don't try to do it all anymore. I set radically honest, is that the way to say it? Radically honest expectations of myself. I build workflows so that what I do create goes further and can be supported by my team. And when I say team, it is interesting because when I ran a marketing agency at one point, I had a team of about 13 freelancers that I worked with. I had an online business manager, virtual assistant, like doing my work, and then freelancers in the roles of copywriting and design and virtual assistant. And I would then bring those team members in. And so at that point, I really had like a team, it was big. It was a lot of people, a lot of time zones. It kind of burned me out. But right now, it is just me, Chelsea, and my lovely operations goddess, I call her. She's my online business manager, and she helps to run the behind the scenes and take ownership of tasks that I have created systems for her to be the implementer on, and we make a great duo. Now, just as this quick recap, in episode 3, we introduced a simple framework that I call the audit the output and then build backwards. And I use 3 steps. We're going to walk through them in a second. And then in episode 4, with a case study talking about an outdoor school I've been working with, we talked about some really important questions that are important before you think about how you're going to create a system. But I'm going to talk through them very transparently, very specifically around my business. And because I run this part-time and because I have such a small, very part-time access to my team member, I need to be really prioritized on what I'm trying to achieve now, what I'm trying to do later. And if you've never been introduced to this concept, I use a method that I've called the seasonal planning method. It's the rooted method of business planning. And I worked this system for the past 3 years and have really honed it. I've supported clients, I've supported members when I had a live community membership. And right now, the way that I can really dive in and help people to adopt this, just in case what you're hearing in this episode really resonates with you, is my Rooted VIP days. And in the next episode, I'm going to specifically talk about how those VIP days came to be, what happens during them, what makes a good candidate for someone to have a wild transformation during a VIP day. But I might be talking a little bit about that, like this rooted method and the seasonal planning in this episode, because it is how I live, breathe, and embody what I teach is by doing in my business. Okay. So in this current 90-day season, my high priority is routines and rhythms. What am I doing? Like, what is Chelsea only activity versus what can someone else be doing? And in my case, that someone else, her name is Sarah. I might say her name just so you know who I'm talking about. And routines and rhythms is about literally down to a T in my ClickUp. When I open it, what does the dashboard say I do every Monday? And once I get through the Monday tasks, what's the next highest priority? And so I'm doing a lot of work and supporting myself with rhythms and routines. I use a project management tool called ClickUp. I have a discount code somewhere. If you ever want to explore it, just message me. But what I am really going to be talking about today is the rhythm and routine around marketing. Quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation, you will love the Well-Built Business Buzz. It's my free weekly newsletter where I share practical systems, behind the scenes decisions, and the operational shifts I'm making in real time and sharing for your benefit. You can join through the link in the show notes. Now, let's get back to it. So how am I creating marketing content? What is my personal plan? Behind the scenes, what am I trying for the next 6 months? I have had different seasons and iterations of wanting to really focus marketing on YouTube or going all in on certain platforms. And I'm just going to share what I'm doing now. And I'm really excited about it. It feels really grounded. It feels very doable. And it makes a lot of strategic sense as well as energetic sense to me. So I'm really excited about it. Okay, so we're going to talk through the audit the output, then build backwards process for me. So the first step is to define your ideal output. In my mind, when it comes to marketing, is like a production calendar. So if I look at a given, a blank calendar that represents a month, what am I trying to put out there consistently that people can come to expect from me? And what am I making, right? So the ideal output for me right now is doing 2 to 3 TikTok videos on my Well-Built Business channel. Now, if you're like a TikTok expert and you're listening to this and you're like, that is not frequent enough. I know, I get it, but it's what I'm doing. This is what I feel like is realistic. And I actually run a separate personal brand. I don't really talk about that here on this podcast, but I run a separate personal brand where I create multiple TikTok videos a day. And I just need to be realistic, okay? So I am focusing on doing 2 to 3 TikTok videos a week. The Monday one promotes encourages people to join my newsletter, the Well-Built Business Buzz. It goes out every Monday, so that's a great day for me to remember to promote the newsletter. And then the other 2 times are going to be promotions for people to listen to this podcast. So it's basically going to be like, hey, I hope people find me on TikTok. And from there, I would love for some of them to find the podcast and for some of them to join my newsletter. That's my plan. I am, just so you know, I'm not going to dive super deep into this, but I am using a software called repurpose.io. I can link it below to take those TikTok videos, the 2 to 3 that I get out each week, and I'm repurposing them over to Instagram, to YouTube as a YouTube short, and to LinkedIn. And yeah, I'm just kind of exploring repurposing without putting a ton of intention around reformatting it. And it's just a little bit of an experiment. And I feel good about that. I'm doing that because I also repurpose significantly for my personal brand. So I'm paying for repurpose.io anyway. So I'm trying it and I feel good about that. Then for longer form content, I am doing a weekly podcast. Right now, I'm putting it out every Friday. The same day that the podcast goes out, I like for the associated blog post to go out. And it is basically taking the podcast, turning it into a blog post. And then also on Monday, I send out a weekly newsletter which of course I try to add value outside of what you're getting on social media, but also in that newsletter promoting people going to the blog post about the podcast, right? So creating this little ecosystem of podcast, blog, newsletter. Ideally, I would like to have a very simple carousel post on Instagram and LinkedIn once a week as well, but I'm not putting too much pressure on that until I systematize some of the core things. And then it's nice to get there when I get there platform for me is Threads. I actually really do enjoy being on Threads. It's hard for me to not overconsume on Threads, but I am trying to be like, ooh, I'm promoting my podcast. Let me also go put a Threads. At some point when I can systematize and offload some of the other things, I feel like Threads, even and or Pinterest could be something that I would love to really focus on to grow more traffic to my podcast and blog. But right now, 2 to 3 TikToks a week, podcast, blog, newsletter, ideally a carousel, hang out on Threads when I can. That's my content plan. So that is a lot to do when I already only work part-time, and I only want part of that part-time to be marketing, because obviously I need to be available for people to book me for VIP days and for business systems audits and to be available for consulting clients, right? So I needed to get really honest about what, step 2 is trace the workflow. Like, what are all the steps from idea to publication for all of those things? And then step 3 is related, I'll probably weave them in, is finding the streamline opportunities of how can I make those more repeatable patterns and or prepare to delegate. Only I can create the 2 to 3 TikToks. It turns out it is my face. I mostly do talking head videos and sprinkle in some B-roll, and that's my plan right now. So that is Chelsea must do. It is only my voice creating my podcast. I know that you can use AI to create your voice, and that's just not my vibe. This is me. This is really me. I make mistakes, and it is my voice. So 1 podcast a week is the core of that content engine. But everything else is secondary or repurposed from those pieces of content. So I got really clear on what Chelsea has to do versus what are some of the workflows that I can start tracing backwards from those pieces of content. So let's talk about what it actually takes to create those pieces of output. So let's talk about the short form videos. No, let's talk podcast first, because podcast for me drives everything. So podcast to blog to newsletter. When I started thinking about okay, I'm going to get back into podcasting, then it was like, well, I'm literally in an SEO course right now. So it would be crazy for me to not learn how to turn it into a blog post to create SEO rich content from my website. So, okay, I'm committing to doing that. And here's a decision I've made in my business. If you listen to this in the future, maybe I've changed my mind, but I don't know, probably not. No longer provide freebies. I do not have lead magnets. It is basically like you get to hang out for free with me on my podcast. You get to read my blog for free. You get to be on my email newsletter for free. And other than that, it's pay to play. That's just where I'm at. Maybe it's perimenopause and me being a little bit sassy, but I have given away so many free courses and lead magnets and quizzes and things over the years. And I just feel like my ideal client is not a freebie hoarder. And I want to work with people who are ready to solve problems and have challenges that they want solutions to, and that they want to bring a consultant in for, or they want a systems audit. And I'm just being really honest about where I'm at in my business. I am not saying lead magnets are dead by any means, but that's just me right now. And so if I'm working backwards on the podcast, what I decided is that instead of divvying up, oh, this topic will lead to this call to action, or this topic will lead to this call to action, I have 6 pillars of the well-built business method. I'm like, boom, boom, boom. Those are 6 pillars. Great. That's 6 months of content, folks. Because for each pillar, I am presenting to you, here's the behind the scenes. The first episode talks about normalizing, understanding the challenge around what does having a problem around this pillar feel like, and what is it presenting as in your business, okay? To normalize and help people understand, hey, this actually might be a problem for you. The second is to do painting the vision. Once you have systems in place around this particular pillar, here's what's possible, here's what I've seen, giving some teaching, giving some specific systems you can implement so that you're like, yay, I want to listen to Chelsea's podcast. I always learn something. Episode 3 of that core topic is going to be a case study, like letting you know that people actually hire me and like me, right? And then we get results. But then also that I want you to see that this type of thing happens and can be supported for so many different types of businesses. And I want you to maybe see yourself in one of the case study examples, but also start to see, oh my gosh, these systems exist for every type of business. So it probably is important for me too. The fourth week of that pillar is going to be a behind the scenes, sharing how I am working through this particular system in my business, since I am treating my own business like my own operations client this year. And then I will also probably sprinkle in deeper dives around my offers. Like, what does it look like to be in a VIP day with me? What does it look like to hire me for a business systems audit? Let me talk through some of the things I do when you bring me in as a consultant. I'm doing that for a couple of reasons. One, I always find those episodes super helpful. I don't know, I'm autistic, I have ADHD. Like, once in a while, if I'm thinking about working with someone, I just need them to tell me, this is what it would be like. And I'm like, oh, great, I should do that. So I am assuming that maybe some of you learn like me, and I'm sprinkling those in. But also, because I'm going to turn those episodes into a blog post, it's also really helpful to share those out to my audience. Or if someone is saying, I'm thinking about booking you for a VIP day, but I'm not quite sure what it would look like. Oh my gosh, let me send you this blog post. It has an audio embedded in it. Check it out, right? So I'm creating these assets for multiple reasons. So I've created this like whole system for me to know, basically for the next 6 to 7 months, I know what I'm talking about. I'm just like choosing which pillars to go with based on what I like talking about or questions that I'm having. But basically, once I've chosen, oh, this is the next pillar I'm talking about, they don't have to go in a certain order. Then I know here's the breakdown of how I'm looking at it in, 15 to 20 minute segments, which is my goal for how long the podcasts are. Okay. So that's how I'm then creating that flow of what I'm talking about. This might sound crippling to you if you're someone who likes to be more like in flow and creative channeling. Like, I get it. I used to run a podcast where I literally woke up every morning, grabbed my lavalier mic, and channeled a message. I don't know if you know this. I am psychic intuitive and I love channeling. And so I was channeling a message for the collective every morning. That was a very different purpose. It was more of like just me really enjoying the process of creating more of a connection with my spirit team and kind of quote unquote proving to myself that I could, channel on demand, I guess that's kind of what I was exploring. What does it look like to do this? Because I was looking at bringing my channeling and my intuitive work into VIP days. So I wanted to practice and I wanted to have that proof of concept. So anyway, for this podcast, I'm being very strategic, creating my body of work so that, you know what, if you want to wait 6 months and binge my entire podcast, then you will know my entire body of work. Or somewhere along the way, you might realize, dang, she really knows what she's talking about. Every time I listen to this, it's helpful. It opens my eyes. It shifts a paradigm. I understand something new about systems or operations that I didn't before. When I'm ready to hire someone, it's going to be her. Right? Like, that's really the strategy of this podcast, is that you get value out of it, even if you don't hire me. But if and when you get to a place where you decide you want to prioritize investing in improving your operations, you're like, oh yeah, Chelsea, she seems really great to work with. I want to step into her world, right? Okay, so what I have done is I have created a step-by-step checklist, and today is such a great example of why I spent 3 hours working on this week. So I have a document that when I open it, it's a Google Doc, and it has a template planning notes, I think it says. And so I've got all of the links I need to open on days that I am doing anything in relation to the podcast. So I've got links to open: Captivate, Descript, Key Search, Canva, High Level, Claude, Tiny PNG, like all the things I'm going to need in the course of the workflow. This is also helpful because I am really working to get my business manager to step into helping me with this very quickly. Then I have a place where I do planning and notes and do keyword research and decide on the title. And I have my intro that I read each time, like right there. And then I start running into a checklist. And here's the items I need to do to prepare for recording. Great, check, 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 check. Once the recording is done, check, 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 check. How do I edit? Where do I edit? Exporting the audio. Where does it go? What file format do I need to save it in? Because you know what, guys? I don't know if it's my perimenopause. I don't know if I just have too many open loops in my brain, but if I have to remember that I need to download the subtitles as an SRT file and the transcript as a TXT file, even though there's 5 options for both, I just do not have time or space in my brain for that anymore. So I write down exactly what I need to do. Then here's all the settings I need to put in I'm hosting in Captivate. Here's everything I need to put in. Here's a checklist. Do I have this? Do I have that? It's just like I'm making it so easy so that when I sit down today, like I am, to batch out some podcast episodes, check, 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 check. And then when I get interrupted, inevitably, when my husband and son get home, I get interrupted. Whatever is not checked, you know what, is what I'm going to start doing on Monday to close the loop, to finish the task, okay? Then I have the steps that I'm going to take this podcast transcript and move it into a blog post. I am currently running my website and my blogging through Go High Level. It's just a website builder, a software. And so then I have, what I'm doing is basically for the first 2 or 3 times that I do a podcast and turn it into a blog, I am just documenting the shit out of it. Like if there's something or a question I'm not sure of, I put a little comment on the side of the Google Doc. If I'm like, oh, I made a really great Claude thread that specifically is trained on how to give me the keywords to put in this place on this thing, then I link it and I save that thread. And then I'm just scrolling down, then I have the space to put the blog post copy. I have Claude outline that, and then I, as a human being, write that. And then, save the Google Drive folder, hyperlink the folder here. So all of the steps to a point where some people might be like, this is annoyingly overkill. But to me, what this does is it lights my brain up to be like, ooh, next time I'm going to do this. Next time I turn a podcast into a blog post, what I'm going to do is go through and color code, highlight the things that only Chelsea can do. And then I'm going to put and highlight what my business manager can do. So only Chelsea can record and download the files, but once it's into script where I edit, she could go in and download the SRT files and the TXT files. And because I wrote down what format, she does not have to ask me, right? So these are the types of ways that I start to do that whole audit process for myself. Okay, so I don't want to get too in the weeds. I know sometimes it can be a little distracting to hear people's high level of specifics, and I'm going to wrap this up pretty quickly. But I also just want to talk this through for TikToks. So now that I have the podcast, then Monday when I sit down to record my 3 TikToks, I know, okay, Mondays is about the newsletter, and I know what I'm writing the newsletter about. Oh, here's the thing, because the podcast turns into the blog and the newsletter on Monday extends on the theme of what was covered in the podcast and blog. So right now I am physically writing that, meaning I'm not using AI, and I have a template inside of High Level that I can clone each time. So it has the formatting and it has my image down at the bottom, and it has I'm just thinking through the steps of what is something that I don't have to do each time, even if it's something I am going to do because I'm going to write the newsletter. But could I write the copy in a Google Doc, send it over to my business manager, and because there's a template, she could pop it in. She knows the font size I like. She knows what time of day I like to send it out. And so really getting to that granular level and then highlighting what Chelsea has to do and then what I don't have to do. So my goal is to get to a place where I can do the TikTok videos and the podcast and 2 or 3 Chelsea only tasks, do those monthly, batch them out once a month on the weekend, and then know that Sarah could space out her own tasks and allocate her time to be getting the blog and newsletter, have her own that. If she's missing something, she's going to tell me to be like, hey, I need a subject line from you. Okay, great. That's where I want to get to on that. And then the TikToks are kind of just short form video about the topics that are going out for the week. Okay, so that's all about tracing the workflow and finding the streamline opportunities. And then answering the questions for my business, where do we communicate and track tasks? So Sarah and I use Telegram messaging for day-to-day questions and voice notes. We use ClickUp for where tasks are assigned and delegated and updated and comments on. We store and share files in Google Drive and in ClickUp. So I am just making very detailed Google Docs for these SOPs, for the documentation. And where do we train in this process? What I do is I do something myself 2 to 3 times. And then on the last time, I will go through and do like a very quick, concise Loom video. And then I will have her watch the Loom video, look at the documentation, and then we'll have a meeting. And I'll be like, what did you not understand? What was not clear? What do you feel like I would need to give you ahead of time? And then we're going to finalize it together. And then I will be like, great, are you ready to own this for next week? And then I will make sure that I'm available to review and give feedback for the first couple of weeks. And then I will just be like, that is off my plate. So that's how I'm involving my OBM. My goal is to offboard some of these core marketing tasks that are not Chelsea reliant as quickly as possible. Because I only work part-time, I think about it in my mind, I either need to pay for more childcare or I need to pay for someone to help me in my business because I only have part-time hours, right? So the sooner she can own something and take it off my plate, the more time I have available for someone who liked the podcast or liked the blog or liked my newsletter to book a call onto my calendar. And then I am able to be off homeschooling and going to the beach and going to the botanical gardens and having that balance that I desire in this season. So the mindset shift for me has been that this is not about losing control. It is about protecting my capacity as a part-time business owner, embodying the rooted method of seasonal planning that I teach and that I support people through in VIP days. And so the real talk, honesty, is I don't do it all. That's the whole point. I build systems specifically so I don't have to. Running a business part-time means every hour counts, which makes workflows just non-negotiable. It is not optional. I cannot, or I have to drastically decrease my expectations of what my output would be, right? So this is what it looks like to practice what I preach. This is just obviously one pillar, marketing and visibility. This is one pillar of the well-built business method. There are 6 pillars of systems that I believe every well-built service-based business needs to have in place to be sustainable and scalable. But when you get this one dialed in, the marketing and visibility, it really frees up mental space and energy to look at the other 5, right? So for the past 3 episodes, we've been talking about this pillar because it's where most founders feel the most friction and where systems can make the fastest difference, honestly. Like once I can get these tasks offloaded, then, oh gosh, that time opens back up and I can fill it with really productive activities. So if this resonated, there are 2 ways to have support from me right now. The first is to book me for a Rooted VIP day where we map out your next 90 days strategically and energetically. It is a unique experience. I'll be diving into it in the next episode. Or you can book me for a business systems audit where we're actually going to work side by side to figure out which of these 6 pillars are the top 2 pillars where you need systems support stat, because those are going to be the highest return on investment of buying back time or money into your business and creating a plan of what that looks like. So both links are in the show notes below. And if you're not on my newsletter, make sure to check out and subscribe for the Well-Built Business Buzz. If this episode supported you in some way, opened your mind, got you brainstorming, I would genuinely appreciate if you left a review. It helps more founders who are ready for this level of work actually find the show. And if someone specific came to mind while you were listening, send it to them. The best businesses are built in rooms where people share what's actually working with each other. If you do share this episode onto social media, I'd love to see your takeaway, so make sure to tag me, Well-Built Business, on most accounts so I can connect with you and reshare it. The Well-Built Business podcast isn't about doing more, it's about building better. And I'm really glad you're here. I'll see you next week.